Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Boring to Badass, where we're helping B2B marketers like yourselves learn how to take a brand from boring to badass. And when it comes to branding and brand strategy, we often focus on external branding, the way the brand presents itself to the world. But a lot of times we overlook an aspect of branding that I feel is just as important, if not even more important, and that's the internal branding, which is why I'm excited to have Liz Johnson on the show today. She's an experienced marketer with over 44 years of experience. And for the last 21 of those years, she runs her own full service agency called Mountain View Marketing. What's even more impressive is every time I've talked to Liz, which has been a few times now, I've always walked away with new insights and ideas. So I'm really excited for this episode, and I know you're going to learn a lot over the next 30 minutes or so. So thanks, Liz, for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Justin. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on. And let's go ahead and jump into the first question, which is, start at the beginning. What is internal branding and how does it differ from external branding?
Well, I think it's important to discuss first what makes a brand successful and then move into the external and internal roles of your brand. I think that may be helpful for viewers today.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
A successful brand is three things. It's engaging, effective, and consistent. Consistently presenting your brand on all platforms can actually increase your revenue by 23%. Businesses that brand consistently on all platforms, both online and offline, are 3.5 times more likely to get strong brand visibility. Your brand actually has two roles, an external role and an internal role. Most people are familiar with the external role of their branding, which is to build trust and credibility. 59% of clients do business with brands because of trust. Your external brand should also build and strengthen your position and your reputation in the marketplace. It should attract new clients and also help you retain existing clients and cultivate client loyalty. 43% of clients spend more money on brands they're loyal to. So that's the external role of your brand. But as you mentioned, Justin, the internal role of your brand is equally important, and it's often overlooked in business today. The internal role of your brand is to attract top quality employees and exceptional collaborative partners. Businesses that have weak company brands actually pay 10% higher salaries and have a much more difficult time attracting top quality employees and team members. Having a successful brand internally can also decrease your hiring and training expenses. It takes much less of an investment to attract top quality employees to work for a successful brand. So it's really important. The other important component of your internal brand is it creates corporate unity, it fuels morale, and it also provides and validates your company's mission to your team members. And that's very, very important, especially today.
Very cool. How do those two things feed into each other, right? In terms of the external and internal branding?
Well, the most important thing a company can do to start with to build and leverage their brand, their internal brand, is to share their brand messaging and all of their brand content internally as well as externally. Most companies push that content out externally, but they don't share that with all of their team members. And it's really important to do that. That is what provides the corporate cohesion, fuels morale, and it also validates that corporate mission. When you push that out internally, you tend to have team members who also reach out to colleagues that they know to come and work for you because they become more invested in your company's brand. So that's a really important first step. It's also important to note that companies should send this brand messaging, all of their brand messaging out to everyone on their team, not just senior level team members, to everyone. It's important for that cohesion internally to fuel that collaborative morale. So that's the first important step.
What would be the next other steps, do you think, especially for maybe say if a listener is working at a company and they have little or no internal branding? So like you said, the messaging part first, what would be some of those next steps?
Well, the next really important step, Justin, is brand advocacy training. And really savvy companies today do brand advocacy training, and they provide their current employees or team members with a brand advocacy guide. This is a game changer. Companies can actually grow their business by up to 30% through organic brand advocacy alone. I'll give you an example. If you have 50 employees and they are asked, what does your company do and why it's important? You would likely get 50 slightly different answers. And there is a lost opportunity cost with that brand advocacy training eliminates. Brand advocacy training provides your team members at all levels, not just senior team members, but all level employees and team members, with actionable insight into your unique brand assets. So brand advocacy training empowers them to be effective brand advocates for your company by giving them the information they need and the tools to do that, as well as stressing to them the importance of this brand advocacy training. It's really important when you do this, however, that you don't make this another corporate responsibility or it's not well received. You need to make sure that this is presented as an asset to your team members, as a tool they can use to answer those two questions. What does your company do and why is it important in both their professional lives and their personal lives? And when you do that and you present brand advocacy training in the right way to your team members, they really become appreciative of it because it makes answering that question very easy for them. It gives them everything they need to do that. And again, it also fuels morale. It develops corporate cohesion. So it has many, many, many benefits. And that brand advocacy guide that should accompany brand advocacy training can also be used as a very effective onboarding tool for future employees. And that's what many companies do. We do a lot of brand advocacy training for our clients, and it's made a huge difference in their business, both internally and externally.
Is brand advocacy training, is it typically externally done, like by someone outside an organization comes in? Can it be done internally as well? Or like, what does that typically look like in terms of when you're thinking about implementing brand advocacy training? What should someone be looking for? Are they looking for an external partner, doing it internally? I just kind of get an idea of like, where would you start with that?
We have always done it as an external partner to our clients, working very collaboratively with the CEO and senior C-suite team members. I think it probably could be done internally. However, it tends to be viewed as a corporate responsibility when you do it internally like that. When you bring someone in to be an empowerment tool for your team, that tends to be a bit more well received. So we've done it as an external partner for our clients, and working very collaboratively with their leadership.
Okay, cool. That helps. What role does like the marketing department play in all of this in terms of doing the brand advocacy training, and then say once you've done that and maintaining the internal branding, like what role does the marketing department play in all that?
Well, they really need to be the drivers of that dissemination of all the brand messaging, because it's very easy for it kind of to slip through the cracks. It's pushed out externally, and there can be a gap or a lag or a lack of consistency in sharing that brand messaging internally. So it's up to the marketing team to really make sure that all of that brand messaging that they push out into the marketplace is also shared internally with all of their team members. They need to develop a system that ensures that happens on an ongoing basis. And then they need to make sure that they're working with the HR department or HR person at the company to ensure that the brand advocacy guide is being implemented as an onboarding tool, because that empowers new employees to be a powerful, actionable brand advocate for the company. So it's really up to them to lead the charge when it comes to brand advocacy.
And what would I guess I'm trying to think, if you want to implement all this as a marketer, then what would some of those common pitfalls be that maybe someone doesn't think about when they start this process of implementing all the internal branding? So what would you say would be some of those things that they need to be looking out for, and what can they do to avoid those?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's important to frame this as a helpful tool, an empowerment tool for team members, not just another responsibility. It's important to present this in a team-spirited way. You know, we really want to share with you all that we're sharing in the marketplace so that you're on the pulse of everything we're doing. And, you know, we really appreciate your support, and you know, that kind of a tone. It really needs to fuel that internal collaboration. So that's first and foremost. And then making sure that you, as with any successful outreach, whether it's internally or externally, you're fueling circular communication. So you don't want to just push this out. You also want to invite your team members to reach back to you if they have thoughts or suggestions or what really resonated with them. Fueling that circular communication internally is just as important as fueling it externally in the marketplace with your prospects and prospective referral partners. You know, circular communication drives business today, and that's true internally as well as externally.
Can you dive a little deeper into kind of what you mean by circular communication? Like, what does that look like? I think I kind of have an idea, but I'm like, what, like, how would you describe that? And like, what are some of the like things you should be thinking about to create that type of communication?
It's really critical in business today, again, both externally and internally. Circular communication is when you reach out and you invite someone to connect with you. They reach back and you begin to build that trusted business relationship, whether it's external or it's internal. So that is circular communication, and that's what's fueling the on an internal basis, the improved morale, the increased cohesion and collaboration within the company, it makes people understand that their feedback is valued and that their relationship with you is valued. It's not just one-way communication. When I started my career 44 years ago, outreach was a horizontal event. You pushed your message out, you waited, and you hoped it resonated. That's not true today. You reach out, you invite people to connect with you. They reach back, you begin to share value-driven content with them, actionable content with them, and you begin to build that trusted business relationship, whether it's externally in the marketplace or internally with your team.
And so this goes into, and I think you already kind of said it and hinted at it, is like getting buy-in, right, internally from people. So making sure people want to actually be advocates for the brand and buy into the messaging. That, at least in my experience, has always been easier to do downstream, right? So as a marketing department, talking to other departments that maybe at a hierarchical level are the same as you or are under you, but then trying to get buy-in from people above you. So say you're a marketer at a business and you're having a hard time convincing the CEO and the rest of the executive team to buy into emphasizing the internal branding. And you've obviously worked with a lot of businesses. What have you seen as some of the best ways for a marketer who recognizes the importance of internal branding to then go and say, how do I advocate and get buy-in from the people above me to actually start this? Because I know you had said earlier, the big thing is it still comes from the top down. The CEO and the executive team have to be bought into it for internal branding to work. So then as a marketer, how do we get them, if they're hesitant or kind of apathetic about it, to buy into that?
Well, I think answering the question, what's in it for them, what's in it for the company, is the best way to do that. So first, sharing with them that if they do this internal branding effectively, and they do the brand advocacy training with it, their business can grow up to 30% organically through that brand advocacy and that effective internal branding alone. So that usually drives home the revenue message. The other piece of that is we are living and working in a very competitive job market today. So retaining exceptional team members is very important to companies. Having an effective internal brand is a really important component for retaining those exceptional team members, which is also very important to the CEO and the C-suite. It's much better to be able to retain exceptional employees than have to go out and search for a replacement for them. The other thing that drives it home is that businesses that do not brand successfully internally tend and don't brand successfully externally as well, tend to pay 10% higher salaries. So the key points would be exceptional employee retention, being able to grow the business up to 30% through organic brand advocacy alone, and having to pay 10% higher salaries if they don't. And that usually garners the attention that's needed to provide this as a priority within the company. And once they see the value of it, I also think it's important to mention that it fuels morale. It provides corporate cohesion and collaboration, which has many, many benefits to all the departments in the company or to all components of the company. I think that's also really important for them to understand. There are direct bottom line benefits, but there are also a large number of indirect, huge benefits that deliver value.
Yeah, those are some really really strong statistics on why it's so important. Okay, so say a marketer is able to get buy-in from the CEO and the rest of the executive team, and they're ready to start. How long does doing the brand advocacy training, like what does that kind of look like? If you could just give us a brief overview of kind of like what's the timeline to expect, what kind of things are they going to be doing internally? Like what types of trainings? What does that just kind of overall process look like?
Well, first of all, in order to create the brand advocacy guide, you need to have final value propositions or unique brand assets in outreach text, which, as you and I know, is very different from narrative text. So that's the first step. If a company has those, great. We can plug those in. If they don't, we need to create those as step one because they're a critical component for brand advocacy. That's the first step. The second step is we create this empowerment tool that's a brand advocacy guide. I work closely with the CEO or senior C-suite executive who's going to have ultimate responsibility for disseminating this. They review it. Once it's final and approved, then we schedule an all-company Zoom training session. That takes about an hour. I do that training myself, and I work with their entire company through Zoom, through a presentation on Zoom, with this brand advocacy guide. And you can actually see people in the room really become engaged. People really become excited about it. This is a tool that they can use because, of course, they understand that if the company does well and increases in growth and prosperity, they have greater job security, they have more opportunities for advancement, and it fuels, again, the morale and collaboration. So that Zoom training takes about an hour. Then either the CEO or whoever the senior C-suite executive is who's responsible for disseminating these brand advocacy guides does so electronically. Everyone gets a copy, and then HR or the person responsible for HR uses it as an onboarding tool moving forward. Periodically, when the company updates services or expands brand assets, then we update the brand advocacy guide and provide a new updated version to them. We're working on that for a large client of ours today, actually, an update.
Cool. Yeah, that was going to be my next question was how often should you be looking at in kind of, I guess maybe not even updated, but just looking at and reevaluating your brand advocacy guide?
We recommend that team members at a company review their brand advocacy closely and thoroughly every 3 months as a refresher. We recommend that the company looks at the brand advocacy guide twice a year to make sure it's still on the pulse of their brand and it still contains the information that's critical for them to share with their team members. So they tend to look at it. We recommend they look at it every 6 months. And I reach back to clients just as a reminder because it's easy for that to get lost in a shuffle of many, many other priorities. So I reach back, we take a look at it, and if we need to update it, we can. We provide the new brand advocacy guide, they disseminate it and ask clients to review the updated version. But brand advocacy training and guides are very, very well received by both the team members and really recognized for their value by the leadership, executive leadership.
How do you get the like the employees, so you said every 3 months, how do you kind of, or what have you seen as the best way of kind of reminding people to go and just review that guide without making it feel, like you mentioned earlier, feel like it's part of like a corporate requirement?
Right. So one thing that we recommend that our clients have found works very, very well is having a quarterly lunch for their entire team, or you can do it half a team at a time. Um, and during that lunch, one of the things that happens is they review this brand advocacy guide. They share stories about, branding experiences they've had. It's a very interactive, but also a strong review time for that brand advocacy guide. And that can be done over lunch. Some companies prefer to do it after work. They have, an event after work for their employees or their team members, however they want to do it. But if you can bring everybody together and review the brand advocacy guide and have a meal or some type of event like that, it brings people together and also recharges the morale that comes from that brand advocacy, which is beneficial. Gives it a boost.
Yeah. So last question then, on talking about doing those like quarterly reviews and everything in the meetings, is that typically ran by the marketing department, or who heads up those kind of events that you do quarterly?
Often well, it depends company to company, really, Justin, but often it's the marketing team that drives that. Sometimes in the larger companies, it's in tandem with the HR team. If they're onboarding some new staff members, they invite them to this. This is a great chance for them to connect with other team members and, you know, familiarize themselves with the brand advocacy guide. In some cases, in very small companies, it's whichever CEO or C-suite executive is responsible for this, they drive that event. But in medium to larger size companies, it's the marketing team or the marketing team in collaboration with HR.
Awesome. Cool. So I like I said, I love talking with you and learning all this stuff,
You.
just because so much it just doesn't get discussed about internal branding. I know the businesses I worked at very rarely did anything about internal branding. And so it's always important to really push that, because you can tell which companies obviously value that, and all the employees know it throughout the organization. So how can listeners connect with you, learn more about Mountain View Marketing? Tell us how we should connect with you, Liz.
Well, I would welcome the opportunity to connect with anyone. I'm a huge proponent of collaboration, and I always love to meet and connect with new people. You can reach me on LinkedIn at MV Marketing Liz, or you can email me at liz@mountainviewmarketingllc.com, and that's all written out. So I invite people, if you have questions, if you have comments, please reach out. I'd love to connect with you.
Awesome. Cool. I'll put all the contact information in the show notes or the video description, wherever you're listening to it. You'll have that information to connect with Liz. Well, thank you,
Sounds great.
Liz. It's
Thank
been
you so
great.
much. It's been wonderful, Justin. Thank you very much for having me today. I've really enjoyed it.
Awesome. And with that, we'll wrap the show. Thanks, guys.